Hey, I'm Tony from the Marathon Mates. Now, today's episode is all about mistakes on race day because we've all made them. We've all made mistakes that have impacted on our performance. So, on this episode, we're going to share the mistakes that we've made and discuss some of the remedies that we have put in place to ensure that our performance next time isn't affected. Whether it's wearing the wrong clothing, the wrong footwear, not fueling or correctly, we've been there, we've done that. We've made the mistakes, so you don't have to. So, as you know, we have the experience and the knowledge as we are the only podcast with 4 6-star world major marathon medalists as co-hosts. This is the Flying Runner podcast. Are you ready to run? Let's go.
Welcome to the thrilling world of the Flying Runner, brought to you by the Marathon Mates.
Hey there, everyone, and welcome back to the Flying Runner. I'm Tony from the Marathon Mates, and this is episode 107. Now, we've all made them, haven't we? Race day mistakes. Now, quite often, these mistakes will impact our performance on the big day. And tonight, we'll be sharing some of the mistakes that we've made, whether it's wearing the wrong clothes, wearing the wrong shoes, not fueling right. And due to that, fading in the last kilometers, we can be under training or we can be overtraining. So undercooked or overcooked. So, and just going out too fast. Now, we've all made the mistakes, and no doubt that you may have made a couple as well. So, on tonight's episode, we're going to discuss the mistakes as well as other common race day mistakes. We will share our tips to overcome those mistakes and help you have a better race day experience. But before we do that, let's introduce our co-host. Now, unfortunately, Lucia is unwell, so she won't be joining us tonight. So, Lucia, on behalf of the crew, I hope that you're feeling better. And of course, we have Team Ellis as the other two. We've got Tim and we've got Tara. So, Tim, how's the week been? And more importantly, it was only just a little while ago that we had the Gold Coast. So, how's your recovery been from the 78 point whatever kilometre you did at the Gold Coast? And I guess you've well on the way to Sydney. So, how's it all going?
Yeah, it's going well, Tony. I didn't do any midweek running at all last week. So basically, after Gold Coast, I did parkrun last weekend with Tara at Kelvin Grove, which we talked about. I then had another midweek off where I didn't do any training during the midweek, and then Saturday we did our long run. Got up really early, did our long run. I knocked over 15 Ks. And then we followed it up with parkrun at Sandgate afterwards. So it was 20 Ks. I must admit, I was really stiff and sore by the end of that. I struggled to get through the parkrun. In fact, I got to about 3.2 kilometres and just couldn't run anymore. Had to walk the rest of it out. My legs were that sore. Fortunately, I had a massage booked with our good friend Wayne Cooley at 9 o'clock after parkrun. He got a lot of work into me. It hurt like all buckery, but he got through it all. And then, on Sunday I woke up, wasn't quite sure how I'd be feeling, whether I'd have any strength in the legs. We went and did jetty to jetty, which is a nice little event that we do in Brisbane here. And both Tara and I ran the 10Ks. We went on our own race. We did our own thing. I started off slow at the jetty to jetty just to warm the legs up and get them moving okay. And I just focused on form. I didn't really focus on pace. I just focused on form. And The first 2Ks are relatively flat, but then it gets quite hilly up and down through sections through to the 5K turnaround. I got to the turnaround at about 27.5 minutes, so about 5.5 minute pace. So not too bad for me. But then came home even stronger and negative split the run to come home with a total average over the full 10Ks of 5 hours and 5 minute 18 pace. So all up 53 minutes for the 10Ks. So I was pretty happy with that in the end. I had very little pain in the end, and the massage. Wayne obviously knows his stuff, as I've said before. Did wonders for me. But again, it's a case of listening to your body. I'm still just working things out. There's still a fair amount of fatigue in the legs after Gold Coast. And you've got to remember, I also did another marathon just in June. So I've done 2 marathons in 2 months plus the extra running. So there's quite a lot of fatigue in my body at the moment. So having said that, I'm going to try and get a little bit more serious this week now with my midweek running, to do a few midweek runs and boost it up again now for Sydney, which is 5 weeks from when this episode drops.
What about you, Tara? How'd you go?
Yeah, so obviously because Tim's living down the coast, I run separately during the week, and I did actually start my Sydney training this week. So I took all of last week off just to let my body recover, and I've started my Sydney training again this week. I have been doing mostly treadmill work, and I've done some bits and pieces with some friends. So Diane, one of my really good friends who always drags me out of bed really early in the morning, she is really fantastic for motivating me to get out. And Saturday did parkrun with Tim. And yeah, jetty to jetty, I actually did a lot better than I thought I was going to. I kept a fairly even pace up until about 8.5 Ks in. And then around about the 8.5 K mark, something just didn't feel quite right. So I backed it off to a walk run. And obviously, because my pacemaker is still fairly new, I just didn't want to push that and do something stupid where I'm going to damage myself. So I thought for the next K.5, I'm not going to damage any part of my body. And because I had actually run a lot faster than I had for a long time, for those first 8.5 Ks, I'm happy. Yeah, caught up with some of my other cardiac athlete people. So all the pacemaker group is like what we call ourselves. But no, I had lots of fun this week. I think I'm starting to get back into where I need to be for Sydney. So hopefully Sydney will be better. What about you, Tony?
Well, we got out for a run midweek, and it was only a small one just to get some shakeout in the legs. And, you know, my son's got a dodgy knee at the moment. He's got a floating patella. So Sharon's got her dramas, and so I think we only did about like 3 kilometers. So it wasn't a major run. It was just something to get out. I was planning to do 15 on Saturday and then another 5 or so on Sunday. However, on Friday morning, I was doing that very dangerous daredevil task of emptying the dishwasher, and my back went. So sharp pain down through the hip, down through the hammy. So it's all nerve related. It happens to me every now and again. And it just happened as I was doing that dangerous task of emptying the dishwasher, which means that I will probably never have to empty the dishwasher again because it is just so dangerous. But so basically, I didn't run all weekend. I've had really 3 bad nights of sleep. The back's still not good. So yeah, I've got to just try and nurse myself through this week, and hopefully I'm right enough to start doing something, because we've got the Townsville Half Marathon coming up on the first weekend in August. So at this stage, I'm not really feeling great about it. So, but got no doubt it'll come good. So,
is there a cutoff for that Townsville half marathon?
No, I don't believe so. I think it's about 3 hours 20 for for the half.
You
So
could pretty much walk it if you had to anyway.
yeah, but I'm not going to do anything silly. I mean, it's more or less a weekend away with a run in it, so that Sharon can catch up with some of the family. And in all honesty, all of us are not in great shape. So I don't know if Tim's going to run it, and I really don't know if Sharon's going to run it. And now that my back's gone, I don't know if I'm going to run it. But we're looking forward to the weekend away anyway. So, well, that's the news of the week. Sorry, that's our news for the week. And now it's time to hand it over to Tim for the news of the week. So, Tim, what's been happening around the world?
Thanks, Tony. I thought you were doing something there that I wasn't aware of, but anyway, it's all good. My number one headline on my run sheet is the biggest running news in the world at the moment, and my headline here is Ruth Chepngetich is a dope, and I'm a little bit upset about this. So, Ruth Chepngetich is the current women's world record holder. She set the world record in Chicago last year when Tara and I were there. First lady to run under 2 hours 10. And then after an event that she ran at back in March this year, she was tested positive to the drug hydrochlorothiazide. And as a result, she has now taken a provisional suspension against that positive test result. Now, what is hydrochlorothiazide? It is a fluid retention and blood pressure medicine. Now, plenty of people use that sort of medication out there. There are some safe limits to use it. It's around about 4 parts per million or whatever it is. And from my understanding, her reading that she had was 3,800 parts per million or whatever the unit is that they measure it on, which is more than what anyone would ever recommend from a doctor's point of view. It's pretty cut and dry that there's something there. And usually, why do runners want to take a diuretic or a blood pressure type medication? It's there purely to try and reduce the weight. It's also there to mask other drugs that they take. Basically, when you are taking this hydrochlorothiazide, it is also a very good masking agent. And to have it in doses as high as what she is alleged to have had, I should say, is probably indicating there's something else there. Now, it's not the first Kenyan. We've talked about the Kenyan drug situation for a number of years on this podcast. It's just another Kenyan. It's another one that's been caught out for taking drugs. There's an issue there. This Ruth has been represented by an agent, an Italian gentleman. I can't remember his name, but he's now had 4 or 5 people underneath him that he represents that have all been tested for drugs. There are other agents in Kenya that have been representing athletes that have also had athletes come up with positive test results. There is a major issue in Kenya when it comes to running and long distance running. And unfortunately, results like this just put doubt on everybody that's part of the Kenyan long distance running program. And, I'd hate to see one day Eliud Kipchoge coming out with this, and I hope he doesn't. He's been tested and he's been in the system for a very long time. But, I'd hate to see somebody like him. It does throw doubts on other athletes. It throws doubts on somebody like Kelvin Kiptum that came out of nowhere, wins 3 marathons in his very first 3 attempts and wins them by big margins, sets the world record. I don't know. I don't know what you guys think, but I'm pretty upset and pissed off, to be honest.
Yeah, it puts a big dampener on everything, that's for sure, Tim. With the amount of people that actually look up to these athletes and take a lot from them, it's not a good look for the sport. It's also not fair on the people that actually train their butts off and work really, really hard to get that, and then have somebody else come in underneath them and take away all their glory. It is not fair, and I really am glad that these drug cheats are getting found. However, it is putting a big dampener on the sport.
It was interesting, Tim, when I saw it, and yeah, I'm like you, a little bit disappointed. And it's really interesting what you see now with everyone saying, "Oh, they all had doubts," and there was a lot of innuendo. And I remember at the time it was because you and Tara were gallivanting around the USA and probably living in another world in so many ways. But I went back and listened to episode 68, which was just me and Lucia talking about the Chicago Marathon. And, it's interesting when you look at Ruth's stats from that event. She improved something like 6 minutes over the marathon in a year. Um, she beat second in that race by 8 minutes. I said during our conversation around it that I really do hope that nothing comes out about the result. And as we've just seen, Ruth's been now caught. And she beat the previous world record by more than 2 minutes, which is just ridiculous. If 209 had been run by your friend Tigster Sefer, it would have had a lot more credibility than what that particular run by Ruth had. So it's very disappointing. There was a lot of innuendo and doubt at the time. I was amazed that they ratified it so quickly, because if we remember back to Kelvin Kipton's, that seemed to take forever to be ratified. But Ruth was ratified very, very quickly. So, yeah, very disappointing.
I just hope, because you got to remember this is a drug test that was recorded in March this year. So if they come back and find that she is guilty of it, and they've got to go through their legal processes and and also their testing regimes, which is B samples and all the rest of it. And if they do suspend her, I do really hope they do go back to Chicago, which has already been ratified and deemed a clean run based on her drug test at the time. But really look at the program that she's been on, look at where the drugs have been coming from and what she's been doing in that time, and go, you know what, there's question marks over these times. We're not accepting him as world records. But I don't know if they can do that or not.
Yeah, I don't know if they can. There's been a lot of people suggesting it should be stripped, but there's also a lot of people saying, well, she was tested, it was ratified. So it'll be interesting to see what plays out. So, or whether people talk about Tigster Sefer at 2:11 as the real world record. It's just going to be an interesting space over the next couple of months, I guess.
That's it. That's it. Now, the other one that sort of got lost during the week because of all that news was that the elite field for Sydney, for the men's field, was announced during the week. We already knew that Eliud Kipchoge was coming, but Tony and Tara, this is an elite field. This is the best marathon field for men that I think I've ever seen in Australia. There are 9 runners in the top of the field that have all run times less than 2 hours and 5 minutes. As we know, Eliud Kipchoge heads the field, but behind him we have Kenyan Vincent Ngetich from Kenya, who's one of those young athletes at the moment. He's 26 years of age. He's ranked number 9 in the world at the moment. Another front star marathon runner in the field is Dewart Waldy from Ethiopia, whose personal best is 2:03:48, and recently he claimed victory in a marathon in China. We also have Berhanu Legacy from Ethiopia, who's a 2-time Tokyo Marathon champion in 2019 and 2020, who's running it as well. So just looking through the elite field there, there's some big names and some big times there in the field, Tony and Tara. But a couple that I'd like to point out that I like to see in there is Yuki Kawauchi from Boston in 2018. The everyday runner who's run, I think, something like more than 220 marathons sub 2:08. He'll be running in the field as well. Brett Robinson from Australia is running there. Liam Adams from Australia is also in the field. Thomas DeCanto, Reese Edwards as well. It's a big field when you look at the list of names there. And I think we'll have a quick race in Sydney if the weather's good and the conditions are ideal for it. We should have a really quick time, maybe the fastest time ever recorded in Australia, which would be fantastic.
It'll be a good race to be in, that's for sure, and watch them all fly past us as we are like still at the start line and they're almost at the finish. So it'd be great.
Don't put yourself down, Tara. You might actually win it. They could all fall over.
Plus the 30,000 other people in front of me, Tim.
It's going to be a great race.
Yeah, it will be. I think it's a deep field and it's going to be a fantastic run. So stay tuned to that for that one, everyone else. If you haven't seen it, go and have a look for it. But apart from that, that's the news this week.
And as always, thanks, Tim. Very detailed as always. But let's talk about race day mistakes, and that's what everyone's waiting to hear. And some of those, what we've learned along the way from making those mistakes. And I'm just going to sit here and ask some questions. I do have Lucia's. Lucia has provided us some info. I've got that just on my other screen here, so I'll refer to that when I need to. I had to just close it down because someone has organised a Sydney Marathon lunch at the time that we're recording our podcast, and there's all sorts of beeps and everything going on. So, yeah, thanks for that. I think it was Mark.
Yep.
So let's kick it off. I'm just gonna. There's only two to rotate, so let's you guys just take it in turns, and I'll kick in every now and again. So, but we'll start with Tara. Looking back, Tara, on all the races that you've done over the years, is there one race day mistake that stands out?
Oh, yes, and I think we all know it too. It's Boston. So don't drink new stuff on course on race day. That's my biggest mistake ever. And that was like, I don't know what number marathon that was for me, but I should know better, and I didn't. So don't take in any new nutrition on race day.
For Lucia said wearing a pair of newer shoes for Sydney Marathon last year, and not wearing them for a long run prior. She got blisters on race day. Now, so if she had worn them on a longer run before, I wouldn't have realised and taken my normal steps, such as putting tape, etc., etc. So, so that was Lucia. So, what was the end result of you taking a new drink for those listeners that may not know?
Oh yeah, so I got very, very sick. Any nutrition that went in from 12 Ks onwards came back out. So I ran 30 Ks in 27-degree heat in the middle of the day for Boston Marathon with no nutrition, no fuel, and vomiting probably every 500 meters for those 30 kilometers, with Tim dragging me along to make sure I got finished, to make sure I did get to the finish line. So it was not a pretty day, and there was a 4-second cutoff time for me to be able to get that medal. So very grateful for Tim to make me happen. But yeah, you can make yourself pretty sick if you take the wrong stuff, if you've got a sensitive stomach. Some people have an iron gut, go for it, but I don't.
Yeah, absolutely. Tim, I can't believe you've made a mistake running.
I think I look back on every race and there's a learning from every race, whether it's a mistake or even yesterday on jetty to jetty, there's a learning there as well, no doubt from it. Even though it's even though it's a 10K race and it was over and done with fairly quickly. Probably the biggest mistake I've ever made though was probably on my very first marathon. And the thing is, you don't know when you go into your first marathon what to really expect. And I'd had an awesome taper. I'd done a bit of work going into it. I felt really good in the body. I was probably 10 kilos lighter than what I am now. I was a lot fitter and stronger. And, I just went out way too hard, too quickly, too fast. I was doing 4-minute 28 kilometer splits. And I'd tell myself that's faster than where I think I need to be. I need to slow it down. And the next kilometer would be another 4 minute 28 or 4 minute 30 split. And the next one and the next one. And I got to 25 Ks and it's like, what am I doing? This is just silly. Keep going, keep going. And then 32 kilometers, 33 kilometers, I became physically exhausted. I started walking, I started running, running. And it wasn't a very fun or pleasant experience those last few kilometers, but I got there in the end. And funny enough, it's my fastest ever marathon and it's my PB still to this day. So was it a mistake? I don't know, but I definitely went out way too fast, too early, burned up a lot of energy, and didn't have much fuel in the tank at the end. And so that's probably my biggest mistake.
Yeah, for me, my biggest mistake, and once again for those new listeners, it's Boston. So Boston is the boogeyman or the bogeyman of the podcast crew in many ways. And it was my hydration. And unlike Tara, it wasn't about the course hydration and making me sick. I ran the race. I started the race dehydrated because I tend to have a little bit of a phobia around porta potties and not having to use them. So not drinking is probably not helpful as you move into a marathon. But I also took some Imodium, which dried me out too, because the Imodium worked halfway through the London Marathon. When I took some Imodium, it settled me down from a guts perspective. So I figured that why not? I'll take them the day before. So, and I should have realized something was wrong because I got up and went to the toilet 4 times the night before. So it was just dumb. So, and I started both legs cramping at the 18K, and somehow once again Sharon just dragged me home. So she's been known for that. Many times, and not just from a running perspective, can I tell you? So let's look at training. So we've all made mistakes in training, but have you ever made a mistake in training that then impacted you on race day? So I'll start with Tim first.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think, probably yes, I do actually. Comes back to overtraining, and I tend to get a lot of niggles when I overtrain and load up my muscles too much. And I mentioned it before. My legs are fatigued from doing the Gold Coast, getting massages, and they've improved. But when I'm not listening to my body, particularly in training, and I'm focused on just getting distance done, and I'm not doing the stretching in the midweek that I should be doing, or the gym sessions, or I'm not getting my massages, all of a sudden I'll overload my body. I'll get a strain in my calf. Typically in my calf, sometimes in my hamstrings. It now seems to happen in my hamstrings a little bit at the moment. And then I go into a race where I'm actually nursing something rather than going in feeling fresh and ready to go. And I guess that's probably my biggest mistake, is that overloading of muscles, not listening to them, not doing the stuff I should be doing. So, yeah, because quite often you just get wrapped up in those plans, don't you, that you don't think so much, oh, yeah, it's just fatigue in the legs, I can deal with it, I'll train through it, but it then hits you later on.
Absolutely. Tara?
I think my biggest mistake, I don't do it so much now, but my biggest mistake was doing all my training runs as too fast. So trying to run my long runs at marathon pace or half marathon pace instead of going, no, this needs to be a slow run, and just doing speed work during the week. My biggest mistake was trying to do my long runs at speed. And as the saying goes, we all know, run slow to run fast. So, yeah, I've learned that lesson, to do my long runs slower than my marathon pace.
Yeah, and looking back on my training, I think there's been many times I've gone into a marathon and have been undercooked. Like my training wasn't great, but I've been able to get through them. But then when I think about Gold Coast last year, maybe I overcooked my training because my training, I came out of Tokyo. I had a marathon in my legs. I then focused on getting some speed. And along the way, there was almost, I won't say it was an addiction, but it was like a focus on PBs. So I knocked over a PB for 5K, a PB for 10K, a PB for the half, a PB for 30K, all in my training. And needless to say, I was well on track to do the same thing. And well, I did get a PB for the marathon at the Gold Coast, but it was a painful one because I tore my calf at the 12K mark. And ultimately that may have been, I'd never really thought about it, but yeah, maybe I overcooked my training. Maybe I was a bit too tense. Maybe I wasn't as loose and as tapered as what I thought. So maybe I should have gone out a little less quick in the Gold Coast in 2024. I'm going.
Sorry, Tony, just quickly. I think, Tara, you've got a new T-shirt motto there: "Run slow to run fast." I reckon that'd look good on the back of a T-shirt.
I'll write that down because
finish lines, not finish times, and then we've also got now run slow to run fast.
Run slow to run fast.
Yes.
It should be train slow to run fast.
Train slow to run fast. Yes.
So Lucia's got her Goldie this year marathon mistake was mental fatigue and not using the mantras that normally gets me through training or get me going. And as we know, Lucia didn't have a world's great training program. She was seduced by the ice cream truck and the donut truck and the coffee truck. And unfortunately, she had a DNF in the marathon, but she did learn. So mantras for Lucia. So let's look at the next question. When we travel for races, have you ever wished you could go back and change something? I'm not going to talk about Boston again, people, just so you know. Go back and change something in the days or the days leading into the race. Did you eat the wrong foods, not respect the distance too much? Tara, so a mistake pre-race when we're traveling.
Yeah, I think when we're traveling, we're so focused on so many other things that to pack everything, as I said in a previous podcast, I actually have a packing list to make sure I don't forget anything. And the reason for that is I have forgotten things that I need for race day, and not necessarily I've forgotten to pack it, but Berlin Marathon is probably the best example where we've got everything. I'm at the start line, like I'm about to walk through the Brandenburg gates to get to the corrals, and I reach down and I'm like, I don't have my phone. And I left my phone behind, which then meant I had no music. And that can put your whole mindset in the wrong place to start with. And then I'm like, oh, I need my phone. What if I didn't leave it in the hotel? What if I've left it and I've dropped it somewhere? So I was starting to panic. So Tim was like, right, we're walking back and we're going to retrace our steps. And sure enough, the phone was sitting there on the bed where I'd left it because I picked up a banana, and me being as ditzy as I am, don't remember anything. I've left my phone behind. So things like that, when you're traveling, probably your brain isn't really in the same focus spot as what it is when you're at home. So just take 2 steps backwards and remember everything is all I've got to say on that one.
Tim.
I think, sorry, just before we get to mine, I think with that one, Tara, if we hadn't have done that and we just walked into the crowds and go, we're all going to be without music, it would have taken quite a positive mindset from you to do that. That's why we ended up going back, because not saying that you couldn't have done that, but it would have affected your run. Not having your phone, not having your music would have meant that, firstly, you weren't in your comfort space. Secondly, you would have been constantly thinking, did I leave it in my room or is it somewhere else?
That's exactly it. My focus point wasn't where it should have been.
Yeah. Yep. And as I say, while some people can sit there and go, yeah, I'll deal with that later on, very few people can actually deal with that. So the best thing you could have done is exactly what we did, which is walk the kilometre back to the hotel room to get the actual phone. So, and that's why you get to your starting areas well in advance to make sure you've got time up your sleeve. For me, my issue or my mistake that we made was in Queenstown Marathon. So we're used to traveling with Traveling Fit. They do a fantastic job of getting you to start lines on time, plenty of time to spare. They walk you to the corral, or they put you on a bus or a train or whatever you need to do. But in Queenstown, we did it ourselves, and we thought we had plenty of time. We walked down to the bus stop where they pick you up to drive you out to the start line, and we were waiting and waiting and waiting, and buses would come, then they'd load up, and then there'd be a wait for another bus for a half an hour or 10 minutes or whatever it was. Then the next one came, and by the time our bus came, we all got on it thinking we had plenty of time, and then we got there and the bus driver got lost along the way a little bit, and we literally got dropped off at the bus stop near the start line 20 seconds, 30 seconds before the gun went. We had to go to the toilet. We had to do a bag drop. We had to get into our corral to be able to start the race. And again, that doesn't start you off very well on a race when you're in a rush and a mild panic to get there. So part of that was our fault. Part of it was largely the organisers' fault as well for not having enough buses running. But they're the mistakes that quite often happen. Disney is, if you go and do any Disney run race, in the US, chances are you're going to have problems with buses. There's always reports of buses that get lost. Or I remember when we did it, Tara, we'd sit there and a bus would go past us because it was totally full and the bus wouldn't stop, and you'd have to wait for the next bus to come through. Get up early, get to the bus stops, get to wherever you need to get to. Make sure you do the walk the day beforehand to know exactly where the buses are going and where they're leaving from, so you know where they are, and you can time the walk back to your hotel or wherever you're staying. So that was probably a mistake there that we've made before overseas.
Tony? And just thinking about mine, Boston once again just front of mind, things leading into the race. But to be honest, when I look back, I haven't really had a lot of regrets around the day before or the days before. Probably not doing enough. Might have been because it was a bit boring just sitting there in the motel room in some cases. So apart from Boston, and I don't want to talk about Boston again. So let's talk about shoes. So have you ever worn the wrong shoes during the race? And it's a two-part question. How did you know you're wearing the wrong shoes? And secondly, what does it do to your mental side, Tim?
Yes, I have. Gold Coast 30, the very first time I did GC 30 down here. It's a 30K race, half trail, half road. And I thought the first year I'd be best off running in trail shoes rather than road shoes. Big mistake for me. I ended up getting massive blisters. When I talk about blisters, they're, it's almost the size of an apple on the base of my foot. From my foot sliding around on the trail shoe on the inside of the shoe, and the friction coming up from the road and the heat coming up from the road surface. How did I know? I was getting a lot of pain and sore spots in my feet, and I guess mentally I just had to push that aside and say, I'll deal with that later. Yes, it hurt, but I was able to deal with it later, keep pushing my way through it. And then Tara had a lot of fun later that evening, popping my blisters on my foot, the big blood blisters that were there, and enjoying the action as the pus and the blood and everything all came through it.
Viewer discretion advised. So, Tara.
You can tell I work in the medical field and it really does not faze me, can't you? My biggest mistake for shoe-wise is wearing road shoes on the trail. So opposite to Tim, I ran... I can't remember which trail run it was, but the soles of my shoes actually peeled off because the trail is way too hard for road shoes, and you learn very quickly not to do that again. So running around with half flapping off soles is not fun. Do not wear road shoes on the trail.
And during New York last year, I wore a pair of Convara Pros from Saucony, and I loved the shoe. but I'd never worn them for a marathon before. I'd gone up to the half in them. And as I said, I love the shoes, but during that back half, and admittedly, I was on the course for an hour longer than what I wanted to be, or thought I was going to be. But during that last 2 hours of that marathon, the narrow toe box of the Kinvara Pro really caused me some mental anguish, as never ever once did I think I need to take these shoes off. But when I took the shoes off after the marathon, my feet were red, they were blotchy, no blood blisters, no blisters. I get very lucky with my feet, but at the end of the day, it did become part of my mental struggle to stay in the game for that particular marathon last year. Just wearing the wrong shoe. And as I said, I love the shoe in everything but a marathon. So,
yeah. Can I ask you a question? Sorry, just on shoes quickly.
Yeah.
And it goes back to, I think, Lucier's point as well earlier on. Have you guys ever pulled a pair of runners straight out of a box and then gone running a race with them or running a marathon with them? I for one, am not. I've got to put them on and train with them on. I generally, before a race, like to get about 100 kilometers done in the shoe.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you guys.
I'm the same.
Yeah.
I want to get about 80 to 100 in them before I feel good. I think I could, but in saying that, because when you find a shoe that works for you, I think that I would be comfortable taking a pair of Tempest out of the box and running a marathon in them straight away. And I would also feel the same about the Endorphin Speed 4. So just taking them out of the box and going for a run in them. So doing a marathon in them. So I think there are some shoes that I would do it, but if it was a brand new pair of shoes that I did not know about or had never worn before, I don't think I would be able to do that. Mentally, I would struggle, but who knows what it's going to do to the shoe. Tara, I hope I didn't cut you off there.
No, you're fine. Even if I'm changing into the same pair of shoes, the same version, say for example the Ghost 14s, and I'm going into the exact same pair of shoes, I will not wear them brand new out of the box, and not for a race. The reason for that is I have found there has been discrepancies because some of them are actually made in different factories, believe it or not. So I will always give them a go first. Sometimes they just squeak or they have some weird feel about them, and I like to lace them up and make sure that the laces feel really nice and comfortable where they need to be as well. So no, I personally need to at least do a 5K, even if it's the same brand of shoe.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about a little bit of tech then, shall we? Have you ever ran with some tech or some gear that's failed mid-run or race? And what did you do? Did you throw it off, or how did you overcome that? I think it's Tara's turn.
I think I haven't had any that's really failed. I mean, I've had things that have gone flat on me because I haven't charged them, like headphones. My watch not failed. It actually, the battery went on it at 15 Ks into a 30K run. It was a training run. It does mentally put you in the wrong place, even though you know where you are up to when you run and you know you're about to, come back. It sort of puts your head in the wrong spot. You don't have those stats that you're used to having with your watch. So sometimes now I just like to run, not what I call naked, but I cover up my watch so I don't actually have to see it or look at it, just so that I can be aware that I don't have to have it all the time. Yeah.
Tim?
Yeah, mate. This is a weird one, and it will sound very weird, but it happened to me on my very first ever half marathon. It was the Gold Coast half marathon, and it was the very first time I'd ever run a half marathon, and first time I'd ever run a race with a watch. Anything I'd done beforehand really didn't have watches. Wasn't a new watch, but it was a watch that I'd had for a little while. And at 18 Ks into the half marathon, very first half marathon, my screen on my watch just froze. I've never had it happen to me ever again. For some reason, at 18 Ks in my very first marathon, my screen just froze. It didn't it didn't show anything other than just the pace of that kilometer, and never came off that screen back to where it was. And here I am running along, trying to set my buttons and push the buttons, and I was becoming more focused on that. And I got to about 18 and a half, 19 Ks, and it's like, what am I doing frigging around with this watch? The finish line's not far away. Focus on that, get your head back into the game. And essentially I just forgot about the watch, just let it do whatever it was doing. Surprisingly, just as I'm sort of coming down that finishing straight 100 meters or so before I turned into the chute, it started working again. So it's just some weird thing, but it can throw you, and it threw me quite a bit at the time, and I was more focused on that than I was on my run and getting to the finish line. So, you got to be careful of that. Apart from that, I've had no other tech issues. Occasionally, as Tara says, things like a headphone's running out of charge, but I can deal with that. But, the watch really threw me.
I haven't had a lot of failures. I think I'm like Tara. I had headphones run out of power once, and that's sort of, I was halfway, I think 5 kilometres left of the Australian Outback Marathon. So that wasn't a biggie. I wasn't too fussed about that. I just put them in my pocket and carried on. And looking at Lucia's notes, she's run the Gold Coast half, her very first, without headphones, not because of a failure. I guess it was her failure not having a checklist and not taking the headphones with her. So does that fit that particular question? I don't know. Hey, what's the worst fuel or fueling decision that you've ever made?
For me, I don't have really any fuel or gel issues that I've ever made, other than maybe, I'm quite regular every 45 minutes when I take some fuel in a run, and sometimes I might forget, and that might slide out from 45 minutes to an hour in a run, and then I might feel that at the back end of the race. But is that the fuel or is that just fatigue? I couldn't tell you half the time. But no, my guts are pretty strong that I don't have issues with food and fuel and gel. I can do pretty well with most things.
Outside of Boston, Tara, has there been any gelling or fueling decisions that you've made that you've regretted?
Oh, Tony, the list could go on, seriously. And the old age-old rule is nothing new in race day, right? But you can train all you want with something, and it works 100% perfectly for you for training runs. Race day, it all just goes down the drain. So absolutely. Look, I think 95% of the population have had a problem with fueling or running population, overhydrating, underhydrating, overfueling, underfueling. It's a problem for all of us, unfortunately. I look at the people, though, and this has never happened to me, thank goodness, but you're running along in the race and you see all these gel packets that are full, and people have obviously lost them out of their packs or out of their pockets as I've been digging around. And I'm like, I wonder how they're going to go when they get further down the track and they don't have enough fuel. So just keep an eye on your fuel stuff as you're running is pretty much, yeah. But no.
I haven't really had too many gel, or I don't take gels or fueling decisions that have backfired on me. I normally don't fuel incredibly well, and the only thing that I found is that usually by about kilometre 25 I'm fueled out. I can't take any more, and that normally those last roughly 20 Ks are going to be feeding off the large slice that is me. So converting the fat to fuel is what I sort of do, but only because I just can't fuel anymore. So
sorry.
That's where the banana comes in, because I'm the same
right.
as you. I don't like to eat anymore. I'm over the sweet stuff. So that's by 30K. Like, give me that banana. Real food.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, one of the other mistakes I've seen, Tara, you just mentioned people dropping gel packets inadvertently as they're running on the ground. I've seen before hotel cards, the swipe cards you get for your hotel rooms, dropped on the ground where runners have obviously had them in their spy belts next to their phone. They've pulled their gel out or whatever, and out to come the hotel room. So imagine getting back to your hotel room later on and then finding you don't have your swipe card to get back in.
That's a mistake, people. Lucia had breakfast on her first marathon on race day, and she hadn't tried that in training, and she had a stitch for the first 10K. So don't do that if you don't have breakfast as part of your long run training. Don't have breakfast on race day. So let's start driving through this. Arriving late at the start lane, or being really late, or even missing the start. How did you manage to get through that? If that has indeed happened to you, I think the Team Mellis tend to get there 2.5 hours before starting time. So I don't know if it's ever happened to you guys.
That's just because we like to talk to everybody and socialise beforehand, Tony. Apart from the Queenstown one, which was, I don't think it was our fault. The bus driver was just off. Like, we just never got that bus that we needed. But that one really put you in the wrong spot. But yeah, we just like to chat beforehand, believe it or not.
We don't get there too late too often. I've never missed a start apart from that one in Queenstown. And mentally, all we did was just go, rightio, take 3 deep breaths. It is what it is. We still got to run the same distance. Let's go.
We've never missed a start, but we've gone close. So, I think as we've got more comfortable with start times, like we used to get there, according to the organisers, you always get there an hour before your start time. We now believe that you could, even Gold Coast, we were there probably 10 minutes before the official start for the marathon. And that 10 minutes was the longest 10 minutes of our lives as we were walking all the way from where we thought the start line was towards the back where we started. So we don't get fazed by it anymore. I mean, we would if it was a major, like if we were late for Boston, I'd be really quite nervous because the cutoffs, but not for many of the other races that we do. So we're normally there when we need to be there. And I guess, once again, there's a little bit of that phobia in terms of going to the lose and whatnot. So what about the mentally? So I often talk about feeling confident on the start line, confident that I can get through it, confident that I've done the work. But have you ever had those thoughts prior to a race where you've talked yourself in a negative sense, and has that impacted your performance? Tim?
Yeah, I was like that yesterday, to be honest, for Jetty to Jetty. I performed so poorly on Saturday in the park run after doing a long it wasn't long for me, but a 15K run, and then I couldn't even get through the park run properly, that I had negative thoughts Saturday night and then into Sunday prior to the race that, I don't know if I'm going to do it, Tara. I think I might just run with you for a little while. I might even have to walk it all. I don't know. And I guess you get on the starting corral, the gun goes, you cross the start line, race mode kicks in. And I guess, as I said before, I did take a conscientious approach to go slow to begin with. Whilst I averaged 5:18 overall, my first kilometre was 6:10 for the first kilometre. And it was just a slow plod, sorting myself out, making sure the body was feeling okay. And then I was able to go, okay, I got through the first kilometre, the body's feeling okay. Let's go to the next kilometre and see what we do. And I was able to build confidence in the run. And as I said, at the end, I negative split it. And that was mainly because I took a mindset of let's go easy first and let's just focus on form, not on time. And I was focusing more on my form, and even had comments from people afterwards that said, Tim, you look like you're in fantastic form. You're your body was upright, your legs were striding out in front, everything looked really good when you ran past. So maybe that's all you have to do is just go in negative and slow start. Maybe that's all I need to do going forward.
What about yourself, Tara?
Mine's not necessarily race day. I don't panic about race day. I'm a bit like you, Tony. It's just like, oh yeah, we've stood at the start of a race corral now so many times that those nerves and butterflies don't affect me. It still affects Tim, doesn't affect me. But my one would probably be more in training runs where I've probably gone the night before and gone, I really don't want to run tomorrow. I don't know how I can do this. I don't feel like doing it. And then you have a really bad training run. I shouldn't say I force myself to do it, but I just walk out the rest of that training run. Even if I don't run it, I look at it and go, well, it's distance and legs. Distance beats pace any time of the day. Sometimes during a race, though, I do get those really dark spots, and I think everyone who runs marathons can understand where I'm coming from here. Marathon running is, you can train all you want for a marathon, and Lucia will be the first to attest to this. Mentally, if your head is not in the game, it takes a lot to get your head back into the game again, and you have to really do a lot of self-check of, is my body okay? Are my feet okay? Can I breathe okay? Is my heart still pumping? Yes. Okay. Is it all in my head? Yes. And then you've got to do that mental talk of, can I get through this? And it's a really tough thing to do. And we've all been there, and we've all had to talk ourselves into something. So I think that's a really good question. What you're asking is, yeah, you do go into race days like that. I personally haven't, but I have them on my training runs instead. So yep.
Awesome. Let's move on. So another one of the mistakes that people often make is going out too fast. Has that ever happened to you, and what are some of the key learnings, Tara?
Yep, absolutely. Everyone gets caught up, especially at the start of the race. You're on paper and you're feeling like $1 million, and off you go. And you're always running, probably a minute faster per kilometre than what you should be, or at least half a minute. I have learned, and it's taken me a very long time, run my own race. Stop trying to keep up with everybody else. Yep, absolutely. And Tim said it for his first marathon. You run too fast. You've done the same thing, Tony, where your calf's gone, and we've all done it. Learning out of that one is run your own race. Takes time, though. Park run's a really good one to actually teach yourself to run at your own pace and not go at everyone else's speed, because you're in almost like a race situation, but you're not trying to beat anyone else on that one. If you
Absolutely.
want.
Tim?
Yeah, I've done it numerous times and gone out too hard and bonked, but at the end of the day, it's not always a bad thing. If you're looking for a fast time, you may get a fast time doing that if you can hang on, and the pain and the slowdown doesn't happen till the very end. But yeah, ideally you want to run a more consistent pace over the entire distance rather than go out too fast and have this big cliff at the end where you drop off. Is it a bad thing? I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. You've just got to know it's coming and be prepared for it and be able to keep moving forward and be strong.
Yeah, I'm a little bit like that. Just about every one of my races, there's a big cliff at the end, and I just hold on for dear life. So I run while I can, and then I'm going to hit that spot where my training hasn't taken me, and I'm going to hold on. So lastly, our last question, what's the one piece of advice that you're going to give our listeners and our viewers on how to manage their race day, or how to, if you make a mistake on race day, what you can do to help get you through that? So Tim?
Training makes perfect. At the end of the day, make the mistakes on the training track so that you can be perfect on race day.
Great advice. Tara?
Yeah, exactly that. You've got to get through those hard parts in training to get through race day. And you've got to realize your training can be 100% perfect. race day can be absolutely crap, is the nicest way to put it. Don't let that crappy run put you off your next race, because just think you've done the really, really good training block. That was me for Boston. Perfect training block, crap race. Happens. Don't let it put you off.
Yeah. And it was a perfect training block for you too, because we put out the training plan that took you to Boston. So it's really interesting when you look back on that now and you think, yeah, you guys were so confident and then you had such a bad day. So, and that does happen. And my one piece of advice is that you will make a mistake on race day. So it might only be a little one, it might be a big one. You know, you come back from Chicago in 2023, for example, and you fracture your ankle doing a 10K fun run here in Brisbane. So we are going to make mistakes. Some are going to be small and some are going to be big. But the key is you've got to put that mistake out of your head and you've just got to keep moving forward if you can move forward. So you've got to make a call. And as Tara said, things are going to present themselves on race day that you may not have planned for. Running out of water, running out of gels. We're hearing it more and more, and about major races not catering well enough. So those things are out of your control. So you've got to put that behind you and work within what you can control. So that's my tip. And what a great conversation that has been. So I hope that our listeners and viewers have taken a little bit of our knowledge to help them get through any of the race day mistakes that they're going to make. But it's time for me to handball over to Tim, because as you know what's coming up. It's Tim's tip. I need to get a little ditty for Tim's tip, like our news things, so I can like a drum roll. Tim's tip. Over to you, Tim.
Whatever you want to do there, Tony. My tip this week is running is a journey of improvement. You are always learning, and the best time to learn is from those bad runs that you have in training or on race day. Always reflect back on what you can learn and what you can take from it, whether it's wearing the right clothes, wearing the right shoes, eating the right food, arriving early, whatever it is, there's always a learning that you can take. It can be sometimes hard, particularly after you've had a bad run and your mental mindset isn't quite right. But if you do want to try and move on from that bad run or that bad race, it is always easier if you can find a positive from it to move on from, and use that as an opportunity to get back out on the training track, to go again, to reset and try and improve so it doesn't happen again. So recognizing why that bad run was a bad early means you can then move on quickly and get going and get back into the next training block. So that's my tip this week, guys.
As always, fantastic. So we're just about to end this episode, but before we do, Tara, what's on next week?
Excellent, Tony. Thanks for that. Next week we're going to dig into our mindsets where we run. So we're going to look at the thoughts of a runner. I know I'm often asked by new runners, what do I think about when I'm running? Do you really want to know? Probably not. But do I focus on my pace? Do I focus on my distance? Or do I focus on something else? So on next week's show, we're going to dig into our minds and hopefully not find all the really weird stuff. But we're going to talk about what we really think about when we're running and what we talk about. As well as that, we're also going to talk about the things that we should be thinking about when we run. So the positive mindset and how to remain interested in your run and focused on it. So tuning out to dialing in and focusing on form and technique, we will discuss it all next week.
Awesome. As always, it will be an episode, a mind-bending episode, as Tim has put in the run sheet. So no wonder Tara missed that paragraph, because that's and Tara, I know what you think about. You're thinking about when is the next puppy dog? Oh my God, wasn't that a cute puppy dog? I haven't seen a puppy dog for the last kilometre or so. When's my next puppy dog? So
No,
I know what you
no,
think about.
it's thinking Tim's just up the pace on me, and he doesn't think that I know, but I know he's up the pace on me, and it's annoying me.
Oh, it's always the dogs.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for this week's show. So it's been a fun one, and it's time to wrap things up. I've had a lot of fun as always catching up, and it's a shame we missed Lucia because I'm sure she would have added so much value to that particular episode. But Lucia, as we say, let's get well soon. I hope everyone has a good week ahead. And I can't wait to catch up again next week when we do it all again, all over again. So we love making this podcast for you. Let us know what you think. Message us on Instagram, Facebook, or email us at happyrunning@flyingrunner.com. And if you've got any running tips or suggestions for shows, we would love to hear them. So please send them through. You can watch this episode on YouTube and Spotify, or you can listen on Apple, Amazon, or any other podcast platform. Remember, every step counts. Keep running, and we're going to see you next time on the Flying Runner podcast. Happy running.
Happy running.
Happy running.